In this video, we'll take the food ordering system scenario from the Visual Paradigm website that was modified for this example, and we'll create a context diagram from it. And in the context diagram, we're going to have the process, which is the food ordering system. We'll have the external entities, also called agents. That's the supplier, the kitchen, the manager, and the customer. And all four of those will interact with the system. Now, if we had a real full business model, such as for Burger King or McDonald's, we would have a lot more external entities that would interact with this process. But this is a simple diagram for you to see as an example. You'll also have the data flow, which is going to be in between the process and the external entities. So to start off with, what you could do is you could take the draw.io diagram that I provided for you in the slides from Blackboard. And then from there, what you can do is go to File, make a copy, and you could save it in any number of different places, but we'll go ahead and save it in Google Drive, and we'll just call it the data flow diagram notation. I'm going to put a 2 on mine just so I don't have duplicate files. I can find this one easily and remove it later. Now, once you have that, you'll be able to change and modify your data flow diagram information. So you should be able to move these around now, or edit them, or delete them. What I suggest that you do is you go into your Scratchpad. Your Scratchpad will probably not be populated already. So what you do is you drag each of the elements each of the 4 elements that we use for data flow diagramming into the Scratchpad area. If you don't see the Scratchpad, go up to View and make sure that the Scratchpad has a check mark next to it. You'll see once I remove the check mark, it goes away, and there we have it. I've already done that, so you see in mine that the Scratchpad elements are there, the 4 elements of the data flow diagram. We're not going to be using all 4 of those when we create the context diagram, though. And think about that, which one is not in a context diagram? Which of the 4 elements? We have data store, process, external entity, and data flow. So once you have a copy of the data flow diagram notation and you've taken each of these elements and put it into your Scratchpad, now you'll have that element available when you go to the next step. You could build your context diagram from what we have here already, just moving everything around, deleting what you don't need. What I suggest you do, though, is go into File and create New, and create a blank diagram, which is the default, and we'll call that Food Ordering System Context Diagram. And you call it whatever you'd like as long as it makes sense to you, and you'll be able to find it again. Now, this is on the draw.io website, so you can go to draw.io. I've linked mine to my account already. So now you have a blank screen that you work on it. And you see I have the graph on it. You can remove the graph if you want, the grid, like that. And you can add it in. Once you have your grid system on there, you can actually go over to your grid and change the grid. And as you change that, you'll see you get more or fewer of the squares in there. No particular setup that I have, I just chose it at 10 point. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our process. So we have our process from the Scratchpad. Take this process and stick it in the middle of the work area, and you have a process in there. If you double click on the text that's in there, you'll find that you can change the text. So we're going to call it Food Ordering System. Now that's our process. When you do the context diagram, we just have the one food ordering system element in there. And once we have that, when we do a context level diagram, generally that's referred to as the level 0 diagram. So we're going to also put a 0 in front of that. So we know that that's the 0 level diagram. And I'll zoom in a little bit. Now, when we have our food ordering system, we're going to be communicating, and the data or the information is going to flow outside of the food ordering system. And one of the places that'll go, you might think off the top of your head, what's the person that or entity that's going to be involved with us right off from the start, and that would be our customer. So we'll click on the external entity, drag it into our work area, and we'll change that to customer. Now, what's nice about Draw.io is once you have the elements on the page, you can click on and drag on the triangle over to the adjacent item and or element, and it creates the arrow for you. So once you have that, you can also double click on the line, and it will allow you to put in your text. So we now have the customer order that goes from the customer to the food ordering system. Now, it really doesn't matter on the size. We can change the size of the food ordering system if we want. We can change the size of the customer if we want. Now, the other thing we're going to have, what happens after the customer is eaten? Well, we take the bill to the customer. So we'll go ahead and take the text here and draw it straight to the customer. And from here, you can double click on the text, and we have the bill that we can add in there. If you remember in my earlier comments, I said there were 3 others involved. That's the supplier, the kitchen, and the manager. So let's go ahead and add in the supplier, because we have to get our food somewhere. So we'll call this supplier. And let's put in our other entities as well. We'll put in the kitchen. And we'll put in the manager. So you always have the manager involved. So what will happen is in the food ordering system, as we run low on supplies, we'll get a hold of the supplier and we'll send in a purchase request to the supplier. So that's the information flow that way. And we're going to order some inventory. So we'll call this data flow inventory order. Next, we'll have the customer order that went into the food ordering system. Now that's going to go to the kitchen, so the kitchen knows what it is that they're supposed to make. And finally, we're going to bring in the manager. And what is that the manager is going to want to know about? Well, the manager is going to want to know that we are actually getting low on supplies, because the manager is then going to go ahead and place the order. So in this case, the manager is going to be receiving reports from the system, and then the manager will send out the inventory. So I do have it a little bit out of sequence here in the explanation, but the manager will go ahead and do the inventory order back into the system. So it starts out with the customer. Customer has an order, goes into the food ordering system. And remember, now we're talking about the data, the information in the system, not the actual product. So we're not talking about hamburgers here. We're talking about the data that goes along with running the food ordering system. Once it goes into the food ordering system, it then goes out to the kitchen, where the kitchen will make the product, and at the same time, or as another output of the food ordering system, the inventory reports, or the reports of the inventory levels, will go to the manager, and then the manager will see that the inventory is getting low, send the inventory order back to the system, and through the system it goes to the supplier, and there is where you have your context diagram. Now the context diagram is the entrance of the data flow model. It contains only one process, and it doesn't show any data store. If you notice, all we have are the external entities, the data flow, and the actual process itself. We don't have the data store in our diagram. I hope you found this video helpful.